Someone wrote in wanting to know what teachers had influenced me and what sorts of things I had in my background that have informed the way that I teach meditation. There's an interesting story about Sir Isaac Newton. He, in some ways, could be looked upon as the key figure in the history of Western science. In a sense, although science, of course, had a long history before him, things really took off after he published his mathematical principles of natural philosophy, where he was able to link a new kind of mathematics, calculus, to a description of the natural world. This caused a revolution, and it was recognized in his lifetime how extraordinary his contribution was, how this was a kind of quantum leap beyond anything that had occurred before. And indeed, it did sort of create the soil, the fertile soil from which modern science has grown. So he was praised a lot in his lifetime, and he would on occasion say, well, if I've seen further than other people, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. He was referring to people like Kepler, Galileo, Copernicus, and so forth. As a teacher, I don't know if I've seen further than any other teacher, but I can say for sure that I have been privileged to stand on the shoulders of giants. On one hand, I have the spiritual teachers that have influenced me. The strongest influences are from a man named Joshu Sasaki Roshi, who is at Mount Baldy Zen Center. I've been associated with him for, over 2 decades now, well over 2 decades. You can find him very easily on the internet. He is arguably, at this point, at the age of 102, and still going strong, the senior living Buddhist master in the world. That's been a big influence on me. Although I don't in any way think of myself as teaching within the Zen lineage, he was the senior teacher available to me when I was living in Los Angeles, when I'd come back from Asia. And even though I'd had many, many years of practice when I came back, I knew I still needed somebody with vastly more practice to kick me in the butt and inspire me and keep me on track. So I associated with him, even though that way of practice, Rinzai Zen, koan practice, is not really to my personal proclivity. But in any event, I needed the contact with somebody like that. So I don't teach in a Zen way, but I would say that his paradigm, his model for how consciousness works has had a profound influence on me. His paradigm is essentially a reworking of the notion of impermanence as it was formulated centrally in early Buddhism. He's reworked that into a vastly larger and more general model for the nature of consciousness. The name of this channel is based on the name of his approach. It's all based on seeing impermanence in terms of expansion and contraction. So that's one huge influence. A second influence on me has been through the Vipassana tradition, the mindfulness tradition. In specific, have been influenced by 2 lineages of Vipassana practice. Both come from 20th century Burma. One is the U Ba Khin lineage, which puts an enormous emphasis on body sensation. And I also emphasize body sensation, not to the exclusion of other things, but just understanding how important body sensation is was something that I picked up from that tradition. So that's an influence. Another influence is from the Mahasi Sayadaw lineage of Burmese Vipassana. I took from that the noting process. However, I have modified the concept of noting and the implementation of noting. I've changed it somewhat from the way that it is done in the traditional Mahasi method. And I don't have time now to go into the details of that, but that has been an influence. Because most of the techniques that I teach involve noting sensory phenomena. I've also been influenced by my original school of ordination, Vajrayana, in the Japanese form, which is called Shingon. In Vajrayana practice, they put a lot of emphasis on visual experience, auditory experience, and somatic experience. You'll sometimes see the expression body, speech, mind. Well, body is body, speech is auditory, and mind refers to mental images in this case. The particular word that's used refers to the visualization process. That somatic, visual, auditory way of working both with subjective experience and objective experience, that's something I picked up from the Vajrayana tradition. So I stand on the back of these various masters, stand on their shoulders. I also, further back, stand on the shoulders of the prehistoric shamanic explorers of consciousness, whose names we don't know, but whose rituals and ceremonies, ordeals, led to them entering states of concentration and equanimity, which eventually developed, when civilizations arose, into the meditation techniques of these various lineages. But I'm fortunate to stand also on the shoulders of Sir Isaac Newton and Euclid and Francis Bacon and Richard Feynman and Albert Einstein and James Clerk Maxwell. The whole science tradition, the whole Western mathematical, empirical, rigorous, skeptical pragmatism has profoundly influenced me. The way that I teach is my best attempt at a fully contemporary, fully modern, and as close to science as can be at this point in history, version of what that other lineage of masters and prehistoric shamans had developed. So I get to stand on two sets of immense shoulders, and I am immensely, immensely grateful.